Hello again, welcome back to my channel, Andrea's Diaries. Today I'm going to talk about tests I've been doing and where I am with that and IVF. And then on the second part I just want to mention a couple of things I've been doing the last few months that have been working wonders for me. So as I said in my previous video, my doctor has advised me to do a few more tests before doing any embryo transfer. Initially I tried to do these tests through GP here, but after probably a month of sort of being scheduled in, telling me they can do it, then having a receptionist who was ridiculously unhelpful for a week. Anyway, it ended up that I can't do it through the GP, therefore I have to pay for them. So the option was to obviously do them here in UK. It would have cost some ridiculous amounts. I think level 1 was around £1,000, level 2 another £1,300, and one of the other bits was something like £2,500. I mean, I personally don't have that money, so I had to look sort of outside of the box, and one of the options for me was to go back to my home country, Romania, and see if I can do them there and if they would be cheaper. Of course they were. I ended up doing them at the private health clinic. So they was a little bit hard to do these tests in Romania because I had to get the doctor's letter translated basically. It was written in a high level way, so when I took it to the doctor in Romania, she couldn't really tell what sort of test is my doctor here suggesting. And there, when you do IVF, it's a little bit different, which I think some parts are really good. For example, there they do a lot of tests before you go down the IVF route. I don't think it was clear to me that there are so many elements that can go wrong. There are so many tests that I could do that maybe would tell me if there is anything wrong that I can fix before I go down the IVF route. Nonetheless, we are where we are. I've done these tests and the results came back, although they were not translated. Most health-related tests are, I assume, Latin anyway, so actually the doctor here didn't have a hard job. She managed to read most of them, and if I'm honest, I managed to understand most of them because it tells you what the test is, it tells you what your result is, and it usually tells you what are the good levels. The only things I've seen were two main things, which actually ended up being the issue things. One was my vitamin D levels and one was my TSH levels. Whilst they were both sort of within the range, they were very much at the limit. So for example, my vitamin D was at the lowest level. That's when I sort of woke up and thought, I sat so much in sun across the summer and my levels are still low. I need to take supplements. And then it made me think, well, obviously I had it even worse whilst I was working because I was literally home, in the car, in the office, no sunlight, nothing. So I can't even imagine when I did my first transfer, my second transfer, what those levels would have looked like. So I started taking supplements for that. And the other one was the TSH levels, which were high. So again, it was on the edge, but then the doctor here explained that actually for someone who's trying to get pregnant, these should be way much lower. So I got some pills for that. It is called actually, I don't even know how to say it, so I'm just gonna write it here. £3 for 28 tablets, so you know, very affordable compared to everything else. So if I would have done these tests here, it would have been thousands and thousands of pounds. Doing them in Romania, although I haven't done them all, and some of them maybe were not the correct ones that I was meant to do, altogether I paid £800 for something that here would have been £5 grand potentially altogether. So I felt very positive about my choice of going ahead with that. I have booked in for a further test for the vitamin D levels and TSH levels. I am feeling very positive about it. I'm almost 100% sure that they're gonna turn out well. The nurse advised that day after I'm gonna get the results, so I will be able to know if they are good, and if they are good I'm gonna go ahead and start my protocol for another embryo transfer. And if they are not good, then obviously I need to further medicate and get those levels to the right levels. Anyway, that's part one around sort of the IVF element. But then I also wanted to talk to you about two main things that is why I'm happy right now, why I'm smiling so much, why I'm positive about life, why I'm positive about my fertility journey and so on. I came across a book, it's called PCOS Repair Protocol, which focuses on the root causes of the PCOS. Sorry, if you're first time here, I have PCOS, which is why I'm doing IVF. It was, by the way, around £17, so not too expensive. There are some add-ons and additionals that you can buy. I came across it on Instagram, and I'm one of those that keeps on going back to the same thing and never believes, never trusts anything, so I kept going back on, is it real? What is it gonna tell me? Is it even gonna tell me anything, or is it just gonna be, you know, blah blah blah? There's a lot of storytelling in it as well, but there are some really key things that I started to recognize based on what I'm going through or what I was going through. And when he talks about root cause, it's so important. I didn't realize, again, I don't know why, but the doctors here never told me what could be causing it. So genuinely, the health system is just, I think it's bad everywhere, so I'm not gonna necessarily complain, but there's so many things that I wish I would have known last year, 3 years ago, when I was a teenager, because then I'm 100% sure I would not be where I am now. I would be having a child one way or another, and regardless, I'm happy that, you know, that saying, you can't unknown what you know, or something along the lines. Well, that's how I feel. So I really recommend this book if you have PCOS, because I think it will help you around what you should and shouldn't eat. It's not like a diet book, so it doesn't really say cut out this or this. It just tells you whatever you want to eat, when to eat it. And it's also so nice that, you know, it talks about you can't do everything 100%, and it talks about the changes to do them step by step, which is what I feel it really works for me. Where I implemented my breakfast to be according to the advice in the book, and then I moved on to lunch, dinner and so on. The only thing I really cut out, it was dairy, most importantly milk. I still have cheese sometimes in very little amounts, and I know it's not the best for me, but it's fine, and I try to limit my sugar intake. But other than that, I eat everything like I did before, but I eat them at different times of the day and then in different amounts as well. Some more that I've never used to have, and some less that maybe I had a little bit too much within the week. So if you have PCOS, I urge you to give it a go. And the other thing I was going to talk to you about is this lady I came across on Instagram called Laura Wilkes, and I'm doing one of her programs or courses, whatever you call it. It's called Fertile. I've been doing it for a couple of months now, and it's been doing wonders for me. Now, Laura is a menstrual cycle educator and a yin trainer, and she's so much more, so I'm doing her a disservice here. But basically, she has this course called Fertile. It is a lot related to our nourishment and our movements and just living cyclically, which is something, you know, is again the best word I came across, because again, nobody ever told us that we should do that. And we live in such a sort of straight line world because man can do it, so we try to get there. Again, in the past with my work, I've always focused on being equal to a man. That meant putting aside all my feminine side and just literally going for the top, which has worked on one side, which was career, but it definitely hasn't worked health-wise. Anyway, the combination of what I read in that book and following again advice and just a new way of living through Laura, I am at a very different place in my life, and genuinely I'm just so positive. I feel like I can fall pregnant naturally, but I also feel positive about my IVF. You know, is there to help us women for who maybe it's not as easy and it's not as straightforward. So I'm very grateful that I still have 4 embryos, and if I'm honest, I can't wait to have the next transfer. But I'm also just calm and at peace with myself, with my life, finally living the way I should have lived all this time, and just noticing those elements. So Laura talks a lot about the cycle tracking, and whilst I don't go too much into detail, I go in detail enough to help me go through each stages. You know, I'm gonna feel down some weeks, I'm gonna feel very up some weeks, and that's all okay. And it's explained through the hormones that are happening through my body. And the other thing I really found useful, well, 2 main things, is the BBT, basal body temperature. So I'm tracking that and tracking what's in my pants basically. And the 2 together taught me to understand when or if I'm ovulating. And I have to say, the last few months I feel like, well, I'm pretty sure I read the signs right and I have ovulated, and it's been fantastic. I feel like, you know, I'm getting to a place where I can do this. We can definitely make a baby naturally or through IVF, but I know I can do it. Anyway, I'll leave you there, and thank you very much again for watching. Please subscribe if you want to know the future of my story and where this goes. As I said, I'm gonna have my blood test in 2 weeks time, and then I'm gonna know if I'm doing the next transfer. Anyway, I'll check in shortly and I'll let you know what's next. Bye bye.